Miami avoided the chaos of last week because, well, they didn't play. But this week, they're on upset alert.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I am your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I have a question about the Big 12, which I'm going to be answering very shortly. USC's slide continues. Who had the more impactful outcome? Penn State winning or USC losing? That's an interesting question, and we're going to go back to the Big 12 later because I tell you what. Heath Ledger's Joker is smiling somewhere. That is the League of Chaos. It is an agent of chaos over there in the Big 12. But I want to start with Miami. So they didn't play last week. They're undefeated. They're ranked in the top 10. And I've got three reasons why they should be on upset alert this week against Louisville. Number one, they're on the road. Now, the last time that Miami went on the road, they went to Cal. That's a longer trip. You changed time zones in a significant way. Like, that was strange. It had Pac-12 after dark vibes, RIP. And you know what? I'll forgive you for that one, Miami. But again, you're on the road. Number two, Miami has had a propensity to try to climb out of holes, and they've been successful so far. That's not the brand of football they were playing earlier this year. If you're an everydayer out there, I very much appreciate you for being that. But you remember my talking early in the season about Miami saying, hey, everyone needs to be scared of this team, particularly those in the ACC, because they're not playing down to the level of their competition, which has been a hallmark oftentimes of Mario Cristobal-led teams. And they were blowing everybody out, even teams they were better than, who usually you'd say, oh, they're going to be in a trap game spot. Well, they're much better than Virginia Tech. That game was close. They're much better than Cal, and that game was close. And they're a better team than Louisville. But that game feels like it's going to be close. I don't have a pick on that game just yet. I'm just saying red alert sirens should be flashing in the brains, cartoon style, for every Miami fan out there, if it's not already, of, yeah, this is a very losable football game. So those are the first two reasons. And the third one is maybe the one that makes me look at this game the most and say, hey, Miami's coming back to play. And sometimes coming off a bye can be really good. Sometimes coming off a bye can make you a little lethargic. I've seen it both ways. We'll see how the Hurricanes come out off a bye. Louisville's not. And Louisville's at 4-2 right now. Their backs at home are up against the wall. Louisville's a 4-2 football team right now. Do you understand that? Do you understand what that means? If the Cardinals want to go back to the ACC championship game, they still can. They've got four undefeated teams in front of them: Clemson, Miami, Pitt, and SMU, all of whom are ranked inside the top 21 in this week's AP poll. But their second loss of the season is to Notre Dame, non-conference bout. And so Louisville suddenly becomes an incredibly dangerous team because they can read the standings whether they tell you they do or not. They can hear the chatter whether they tell you they do or not, and understand very, very well that, yeah, their season's kind of on the line every week they play. Road game, I don't know how you're off a bye. Louisville found a way to win last week. Wasn't always pretty, but they're at home with their backs up against the wall. That has got all the makings of upset potential. Last week of college football might have been the best week in recent memory. Seriously, give me a week that had everything we saw last week. Oregon, Ohio State, craziness. Alabama almost lost again. Ole Miss, LSU, insane football game. Watch out for LSU in the SEC, by the way. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out to Will Howard. If I were to assign, and I'm going to, a fan mood tracker of sorts for the Oregon-Ohio State game to those fans in Columbus, my answer is lean win. Ohio State's one of the two best teams in the Big Ten. They look like one of the five best teams in college football. I think Will Howard's really good. I was really impressed with Will Howard. He played a great game. Buckeyes are going to be just fine. That's just a quick side note there. But Miami, absolutely on upset alert this week. Let's go over to the Big 12. This is so crazy. It's going to be brought up twice on today's episode of Locked On College Football because it's that fun. So, my preseason picks are out the window. More on the Utes a little bit later on. But Kansas, whiff. Swinging a whiff. I whiffed there. I whiffed on BYU. I'm on the Cougars hype train, though. And BYU fans, the consensus is for me to keep picking against them. So, okay, here we go. BYU is 6-0. Iowa State is 6-0. Just remember that. Texas Tech hasn't lost a Big 12 game. They lost to Washington State earlier this year. They have really started to figure things out. They're 5-1. Kansas State 5-1. Arizona State 5-1. Now, those teams are not going to go unbeaten the rest of the season, of course, because this league has too much depth, has too much parity, and just too many fun football games that can go either way. But the notion of the Big 12 getting a second team into the college football playoff, not something I was high on coming into this year. I also would not have said prior to the season that midway through the regular season, you're going to have not one but two unbeaten teams, and that won't include every unbeaten team in Big 12 play. Texas Tech and Arizona State have a valid case to be ranked, by the way. They're not, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So I look at this at this conference right now, and I say, well, who's got the best chance to stumble? Because if the Big 12 wants to get not one but two teams into the playoff, you are in all likelihood going to need an 11-1 team in the regular season that doesn't win your conference championship. Does 10-3 in the Big 12 get you an at-large bid in the playoff? I doubt it. Does 11-2? It should. It absolutely should. And of course, if you have a pair of 12-0 teams, which is possible, I don't think likely, but possible because BYU and Iowa State don't play each other in the regular season, then yes, those two teams would obviously be in. But you have to have two 11-win teams. So between the three at the top, the 3 5-1 teams and the 2 6-0 teams, how confident are you, given that these teams on some occasions will play one another going forward, that you can produce two 11-win regular season teams? My confidence level is not 0. I've seen too many things and too much good football from Iowa State and BYU to think they cannot keep progressing. BYU's schedule, not exactly a barn burner. I mean, there might be some barn burner games, but they host Oklahoma State. I was very right on the Cowboys coming into this year. They're at UCF. The Knights are not ready, and they've been terrible on their home field this season in particular. They're at Utah. Oh my gosh. I don't know if there is a college football rivalry I'm looking forward to more this season than the Holy War in Salt Lake City. Rice Eccles, that's going to be on fire. Then it's Kansas at Arizona State and Houston. That's the schedule for BYU. Very manageable. Very manageable. But how many wins do you see in there for the Cougars? You tell me. I apparently have no sense of what BYU is going to do on the football field this season. But between them and Iowa State, whose schedule goes a little something like this, UCF, Texas Tech, so that's going to remove the possibility of one of those teams of being an 11-1 team, at Kansas. Kansas is unfortunately back to being Kansas for those in Lawrence. Cincinnati, sneaky good football team. At Utah, host Kansas State. Frankly, going 11-2 would be a heck of an accomplishment. Now, the other way, think about this. Big 12 can get two teams into the college football playoff. What if Iowa State goes 10-2 but gets into the playoff? Or if Texas Tech goes 10-2 or gets to the championship game rather, and they meet an 11-1 or 12-0 BYU, just as a hypothetical, and win the game. We've seen the Big 12 do it before. Kansas State, 2022. If you'd had the 12-team playoff that year TCU went to the national championship game, then guess what? Kansas State would have been one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champions, and at 10-3 would have had an automatic first-round bye, and you would have had an at-large TCU team get into the 12-team playoff. Does that materialize? I don't have a lean. I really don't right now, because this league is every bit as fun as we thought it would be. But doesn't that mean that chaos is ensuing? I don't know. You tell me. But that path, that suggestion has been thrown at me before, And I thought I'd address it on today's show. And the more I look at the schedules, the more I go, boy, the stars have to align really, really right. But BYU, better chance to win 11 games in the regular season than Iowa State when you compare those two schedules. No doubt about it. But they have to play Utah on the road. And I don't care who's playing quarterback for Utah. In that rivalry, boy, it's going to be testy. It is going to be really fun. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. So USC lost their third game of the year. They've let me down. Penn State is undefeated and ranked in the top 5, and I don't buy them. Who had the more impactful win in the positive or the negative? That's coming up next. Coming up right now, LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. $0 to post. Terms and conditions apply. USC gets the outright lose label from Saturday against Penn State. That's how the fans should be feeling after that football game. Get to Penn State in the second half of this particular segment because I have many thoughts on the Nittany Lions and Drew Aller. Boy, he came through when he needed to. Miller Moss did not. Had an opportunity on a third down. I don't know what's going on with Lincoln Riley and clock management there at the end of the game. Feels bizarre, to say the least. That's me being kind, I imagine, in the eyes of USC fans and many other people as well. If you didn't see it, USC had the ball over 2 minutes to go, went down the field and just kind of let the clock run out. It looked like they were trying to settle for a long field goal try to win the game. It goes to overtime, they miss a field goal, Penn State kicks one and wins. USC blows a 2-possession lead at home at the half. This game had every opportunity for USC to win it, and they had an opportunity in front of them, one that I predicted, by the way, to salvage their season. And it was right there. The game was playing out how you needed it to. The defense made adjustments. The defense held Penn State to 6 points in the first half. The offense was doing enough. Everything was there. And then the second half flipped, and Lincoln Riley got outcoached. And this is starting to become a regular occurrence. Close games, and USC loses. In their 3 losses this year, you can go to 1 or 2 plays in every game, and the Trojans lost it right there. They're not a bad football team. They're just not going to have a good record at the end of the season, which is what matters most. But they showed in this game that they can play with a team that all of you and many others, maybe not myself, have as a top 4 team, top 3 team actually, in all of college football. And I like Penn State. I like Penn State. I don't love Penn State, and I'll get to that in a moment. But when I watch USC, a team that I was very high on coming into this year, I thought they would beat LSU. I thought they would beat Michigan. I thought they would beat Penn State. I thought they'd beat Minnesota. They just continue rolling along, letting me down in big spots. And it's not as if they feel like they're super far away. Now, the question becomes, what should the pressure level be on Lincoln Riley? This is year 3. It's also year 1 for D'Anton Lynn, their defensive coordinator, who I think has still been a home run hire. I still think is a really good defensive coordinator. Does USC possess the necessary talent level to build an elite unit on that side of the ball? Not right now. Schematically, fundamentally, they're so much better than a year ago. It's night and day. Now they have to go out and win battles on the recruiting trail to build the sorts of defenses that they need to compete for a conference and national championship. But they haven't done that yet. It is a work in progress. So for Lincoln Riley's offense, it has to play at the level that it has in the last several years. and that I know it's capable of, that Trojan fans know it's capable of. I don't love their offensive line. I thought it was much better in this game. I mean, they had a bunch of explosive plays through Marks at the running back position. I thought he was great. They had explosive run plays. They worked in the screen game. USC's offense was humming right until it wasn't. But so the issue with USC's defense having a second half lapse is that it's requiring a lot of the offense. And the offense shows glimpses, but doesn't have that consistent level. Because remember, this is the first year for Miller Moss starting in the system for the Trojans. Most quarterbacks tend to be better in year two. That last time, the last time Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy, well, I guess it was the only time when he won the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, it was his first full year starting, but he'd been in that Lincoln Riley system for a season, and he had played because he came in for Spencer Rattler. So, am I willing to be patient with USC and Lincoln Riley? Yes, to an extent. Like, these sorts of games, you can't keep losing them over and over and over again and expect Trojan fans to be patient forever. Now, year one of a defensive coordinator with a new starting quarterback, didn't expect him to be a conference title contender this season. They should be a lot better than 3-3. They are. They have it within themselves. It just hasn't emerged. They're still a caterpillar waiting to become the butterfly. And that butterfly better show up in 2025, or you're going to be talking Lincoln Riley hot seat. I'm tripling down here, not out on USC as a good team, and I'm not out on Lincoln Riley as the head coach of the Trojans. But these sorts of losses are ratcheting up the pressure game by game by game, and deservedly so. Because this is not Lincoln Riley learning how to be a head coach. He did that at Oklahoma already. This is not Lincoln Riley learning what he needs to do to be successful as USC's head coach. He should know how to do that already. This is, you've got to be able to put your guys in a position to succeed consistently, and you've got to be able to win some close football games. I mean, mathematically, yeah, there's a bad luck component, to be sure. When you play this many close games, you're not going to win them all on average. You're not going to lose them all on average. But there's a consistent theme here, and USC losing the close games this season. Got to find a way to figure that out. Let's flip on the other side to Penn State. I'm not in love with the Nittany Lions. I would not rank them if you were to ask me to go 1 through 25. Who are the best teams in college football? Penn State is inside my top 10. They're not inside my top 5. So the first half of that game against Trojans, you can chalk that up to being lethargic if you would like, because it's a long trip. It's a 6-hour plane ride for James Franklin and company. It's a tough one to make. I'm not going to dive too much into that. But when you go and look at that game, they played against USC. Heck of a comeback. Showed a lot. Drew Aller showed a lot. And then you couple that with games like the Bowling Green performance. You go, well, I mean, West Virginia was really impressive to start the year, but then you kind of had the letdown, and USC, they're trying to figure things out, and there was never a dominant stretch. Penn State won an incredible football game. They were great situationally. They had some big-time drives. They executed on special teams. They made defensive stops when they needed to. Penn State's a really good football team. I don't see the it factor with Penn State. That's what I'm missing. I know that they can run the football. I know that Drew Aller's good. It just feels when I watch Penn State play sometimes like they're disconjointed. Like it's not quite in perfect harmony. But they're working in a new offensive coordinator and a brand new system as well. That could improve by the end of the year. It's going to have to by the time Ohio State rolls into town. Mentioned this earlier in the show. Buckeyes went to Eugene. Tough place to play. Biggest crowd in the history of Autzen Stadium, which, for those who don't know, is where Oregon plays. And it was a heck of a football game. And Ohio State could have won. And Oregon ended up winning. And I walked away impressed with both teams. So that's an outright lose. That's how USC fans should be feeling. For Penn State, I'm in the lean win camp because you didn't save your season. It wasn't a big rivalry win. You definitely showed something, but I'm not wowed with the Nittany Lions. And right now, Penn State on the road, going to State College, I would take them to win and cover against this Nittany Lions team. They're trying to make that next step, right? They're always trying to beat the teams that keep beating them, Ohio State and Michigan. This version of Penn State, I have not seen enough to make me think that they can go toe-to-toe with the Buckeyes. Have not seen it yet. They could still pull it out of themselves. But that was a gutsy, bordering on outright win, but still lean win here for Penn State because I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant on the Nittany Lions. And like I said earlier, lean win for Ohio State because I think the Buckeyes prove they're a really good football team. And they just about won a game in a hostile environment. One play here, one play there, coin flip game. You play Ohio State and Oregon 10 times, they're probably going to split 5-5. That one just happened to go Oregon's way. So Penn State, I think, has to elevate if they want to take the next step that we talk about with James Franklin teams, frankly, every season. No pun intended there. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. I mean, you guys share your thoughts anyway, but I just thought I'd remind you. And subscribe if you have not already, please and thank you. I need to go back to the Big 12. There's just so much craziness over there. So much craziness. Is this just going to force Kyle Whittingham to retire? Well, maybe he should ponder it. That's coming up next. First, let's talk about Game Time. They've got Game Time picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite teams even easier. Yeah, you get to go watch them play live even easier. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, which I'm a big fan of personally, theater, whatever you want. Game Time's got it. They've got everything over there. They've got their lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They have panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Do you know what time it is? Guess what? It's game time. Should Kyle Whittingham just call it quits? There can't be a coach, whether he'd admit it publicly or not, more frustrated, or a fan base more frustrated than Kyle Whittingham in Utah over the last 2 seasons. Without question, every single piece of Utah's teams in the last 2 years have been good enough in 2 different leagues to push for a conference championship. They were my preseason pick to win the Big 12. You know why? I thought Cam Rising might play football. It turns out he may need to look into professionally working in a glass menagerie so he could be surrounded by his people. He can't stay healthy, and it sucks because he's a really good player. And I know he's played. Like, he played on Friday against Arizona State. Anybody who's watched Cam Rising play before, did that look anything, and I mean anything, like the guy who won back-to-back conference championships in the 2021 and 22 seasons? Did it look anything like that? Because even though he got over the finger deal, whatever that was, he then goes into the game, he gets his ankle rolled up on, and he is just throwing ducks out there. It reminds me of Peyton Manning at the end of his career. There's just no juice. There's no life on the ball. It's just the walking mannequin version of what once was a really good quarterback. So for the second straight year, Utah is a quarterback away. I picked them to win the Big 12 this year because I thought Cam Rising was back. If you take him out, it's a different team. Oklahoma State still lost to Isaac Wilson, by the way. But I'm just looking at this Utah team and saying, Kyle Whittingham's got to be tearing his hair out going, oh my gosh. I got to answer questions every week about Cam's health. I got to answer questions with my medical staff about what he can and can't do. I got to answer questions in my own mind about should we go to a backup quarterback. And here's the other question for Kyle Whittingham. Do you have the quarterback of the future on the roster? I mean, Isaac Wilson has showed glimpses. He could be good in time. Do you want to go through the growing pains? He's already named his head coach in waiting. That's Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator. Does this feel in that Utah quarterback room like there's a quick fix, like they're one season away? They're one player away. If you can pony up NIL dollars, there are guys that are really capable in the transfer portal every single offseason. That hasn't been the Utah way, though Cam Rising, of course, was notably a transfer once upon a time. So it's not as if they haven't done that before. But do they want to go with Isaac Wilson? What do they think? Like, being one quarterback away for the last 2 seasons now has to drive you nuts. And if you don't see a quarterback in the transfer portal that catches your eye, or if you can't come up with enough NIL dollars to get the caliber of player that you need to take this program back to a conference championship level, are you willing to go through mentoring, guiding, and learning the strengths and weaknesses of a young quarterback in 2025? How many more years do you think Kyle Whittingham wants to coach? I don't think you name your head coach in waiting if you're willing to do more than 3 at the absolute max. And I just, it's got to be wearing on him. When you make the same mistake over and over on the golf course, drives you insane. But you can control that. You can fix that and make an adjustment. I don't know that there's a great solution here. And that's why I look at Kyle Whittingham and the Utes and say, full credit to Arizona State, by the way. Arizona State, good football team. Kenny Dillingham, he's got the boys cooking down there in Tempe. Better look out. Told you not to pick them last this season in the Big 12. Said that was ridiculous. They're even better than I thought. Utah is way worse than I thought, but only at the one position. They've got a number 1 receiver in Dorian Singer for the first time. They've got a ridiculously talented tight end. They are great in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They still play good defense. They just need a quarterback. They just need one. This is the deepest quarterback league in the conference. Heck, if they had Sam Leavitt from Arizona State, I think Utah wins that football game. But Cam Rising is not the same guy. He just isn't. He's not capable, tragically, of being at 100% on a regular basis. And I don't know how much longer Kyle Whittingham wants to put up with that. So I wonder if he doesn't look at that game Friday night and go, yeah, I mean, okay, let's see what we can do this season, but I'm tired of trying to figure this out because clearly he doesn't have the answer. And I don't know that there's a quick fix. So you don't know who's going to go in the portal. Are you going to bank on that? Is Kyle Whittingham going to bank on that? Is that his preferred option? I don't know. Time will tell. So speaking of the Big 12, with Utah out of the way, and Kansas Jayhawks going back to a bottom dweller in the Big 12, Lance Leipold will be fine, but might take a couple seasons to build things back up. This is a very disappointing season for Kansas football because myself and many others, Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, Joel Klatt of Fox Sports, thought Kansas could be a team with a decently workable schedule that gets to the Big 12 championship game. Well, that's not going to happen. Not even close. But with Utah out of the way and Kansas out of the way, who do you trust most to fill that void? I think Texas Tech is the most overlooked team in the Big 12 right now because they have been playing some consistently good football. And the last time you saw Texas Tech play, it might have been, depending on which time zone you live in, Week 2 against Washington State. They went up to Pullman and they got beat bad, 37-16. In the first 2 games against Abilene Christian and Washington State, which I consider a Power 4 team, by the way, you gave up 51 and 37 points. That's not great. Not a good look for Tim DeRuyter's defense. Since then, 21, 22, 41 against Cincinnati. That's not ideal. And 22. This offense is exactly what I expected it to be. You've got a great running back. You've got a talented quarterback. You've got pass catchers. You just need to play solid defense. That's it. And Texas Tech's schedule, listen to this. Baylor. That's a win. Baylor. What a mess. At TCU. They don't play any defense. At Iowa State. Game of the year in the Big 12? Could be. Outside of the Holy War, of course. Colorado at home. At Oklahoma State. Host West Virginia. Is that a gauntlet? Is that the worst Big 12 schedule you could possibly come up with that is so difficult that you can't be expected to navigate it without losing at least 2 games? Like, no. Not if Texas Tech plays the way they're capable of. Not if the defense is just serviceable. You give up 25 points or fewer, Texas Tech has an excellent chance to win the football game. The only team to hold them under 25 points this year is Washington State. And by the way, the defense has improved. The offense has improved as well. So Iowa State and BYU, rightfully so, are getting their flowers. They're 6-0. They're ranked inside the top 15. Iowa State is inside the top 10 in the country. Josh Pate's got to be going crazy seeing that happen in real time. But I wouldn't overlook Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech and Arizona State have a very legitimate a very legitimate case to be ranked in the AP Top 25. Well, Spencer, who would you rank them over? Who would you? Well, Army and Navy are in there for starters. Michigan's in there. There you go. I mean, what has Michigan done this season? They've got 2 losses, one of which to a Washington team that just got blasted by Iowa. They did beat Minnesota by 3. They did beat USC by 3. They did beat Arkansas State by 10. They got run off their own field by Texas, and they struggled with Fresno State, pulled away at the end. Now, the Minnesota game wasn't as close as 27-24 would have you believe, but that's kind of where it got to. But you asked me who I'd rank there? Yep. Who's got the more impressive resume? Answer, I'm going Texas Tech. I'm going Arizona State. I'll rank them above those teams. I got no problem saying that whatsoever, because Michigan hasn't been all that impressive. And Army Navy, great that they're 6-0. I don't know that if they played Arizona State and Texas Tech schedule, if Army and Navy would be 6-0. 6-0 and 5-0, respectively. The Knights are 6-0, the Midshipmen at 5-0. And you know what? Good for them. It's awesome. They're G5 playoff contenders right now. That's an awesome thing to see. But everyone would always say, well, who would you put them in front of? Pick 2 out of those 3, and I'd be just fine with it. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.